Well, the Labour world divides into three at the moment. There are non-Corbyn supporters who can only see bad in his election. There are the committed supporters who can see no wrong in him. And then there are others trying to see the best in him and willing to give him their backing, at least for the time being. I think the new Shadow Business Secretary, Angela Eagle, falls into that category. She joins us now from Westminster. Very good evening to you.
Good evening. Nice to be categorised.
It's so much to talk about. Look, let's just start on the EU policy. Is it, as Hilary Benn said, that you will be campaigning to stay in, or is it that you will probably be campaigning to stay in?
Well, look, I think that what Jeremy is saying is that this process of renegotiation that the Prime Minister is talking about is actually ongoing, and we don't know what it's going to come up with yet. And he has said that we want the European Union, which has been good for our country, to be the best it can be. He wants to go out and talk to other colleagues from our sister parties across Europe and see what we can do to try to influence the negotiations, because we've been hearing that the Prime Minister wants us to opt us out of the social chapter, to make more attacks on workers' rights, like the attack that we had on trade union rights and freedoms in the House of Commons today. And so what he's saying, I think, is we want to try to influence the debate and get a good outcome from the renegotiation, and it's that he's concentrating on at the moment.
Right, but come the referendum, it's not going to be a sort of a better or worse, or this EU or that EU. It's going to be, are we in, remaining in, or are we leaving? And I mean, Hilary Benn was absolutely clear. He said, Jeremy's made it clear, we'll fight for a better EU. We'll campaigning and are campaigning for Britain to remain part of the European Union. Now, is that your understanding?
I mean, that's got to be the aim, but we are not going to, before we even know what the Prime Minister is going to come back with, know precisely how we're going to be campaigning. What we're saying to the Prime Minister is the EU and our membership of it is a good thing for Britain. Don't go over to the European Union and try to sell workers' rights out, to put all the burdens of change and insecurity on ordinary working people in our country. Make sure, if you're doing a negotiation, that you try to create a Europe that helps everybody in this country.
Right, no, I understand the objective. Sorry, I do understand the objective.
Right behind you.
I do understand the objective. Could you personally imagine remaining in a cabinet or a shadow cabinet that took a collective view that Britain should vote against staying in the EU because you didn't like the way that David Cameron had negotiated our terms? I
think that you're naturally wanting answers to questions that come way down the track after a lot of processes are going on, Evan. I think what we have to recognise is that politics is dynamic and there is a lot of change going on in Europe at the moment. I'm not going to get into those hypotheticals at the moment. I am convinced that Jeremy understands the nature of the benefits of our membership of the European Union, but he's naturally also interested to ensure that those benefits reach everybody in our country and not just a few people at the top.
You've said something very important, and I'm not being facetious when I say this. Does Labour at the moment have a policy on whether Britain should stay in or not? Because during the election campaign, one of the pitches, particularly to business, that's your brief now, one of the pitches was certainty about our membership of the EU. Now, to me, it doesn't sound like there's certainty, it doesn't sound like there's clarity, but am I unreasonable in expecting there to be clarity on day three of Corbyn's administration?
Well, you are jumping the gun a bit, and I understand that the media wants to have immediate answers to things that are more complex, and you want one-word answers. But actually, things are more complex than that. What's happened since that manifesto is that we've lost the election, that the Prime Minister has announced and legislated for an EU referendum, but he hasn't yet told us precisely what these renegotiated terms are going to be. Now, we are entitled as the opposition, Evan. We're entitled as the opposition to say, well, let's just see what you're going to come back with.
Let's move on, because I don't want to push it genuinely if policy is still settling down. Do you have any idea how Cabinet's going to work? There have been some hints that it's going to be a looser Cabinet system than hitherto, that maybe individual shadow secretaries will make their own policy. The leader won't be the kind of dictator that some cabinets have had in the past. Is that how you understand it?
Well, look, the Labour Party, believe it or not, Evan, has always had a democratic policy-making processes. In fact, I'm currently the chair of the National Policy Forum of the party, and we have processes to decide what our policy is. Shadow ministers have an input, and quite rightly, into that, as does the leader. But I think it's clear from the way that Jeremy has behaved and talked throughout his leadership election bid and since he was elected at the weekend, is that he wants debate. He's open to debate. He wants the party to look at a range of all of these issues, use its democratic processes and start to change the way that we do things. And he's been very open about that. And I think that will lead to more debate and a reset of the way that we do things, a move away from this kind of dictatorial, strongman, what I say is somehow party policy. We have our democratic processes, and I think he respects them.
Well, look, on the issue of strong men and women, interesting, Coda, on your particular role. Now, you might have read the reports today. It said
sorts, yes.
You were given your second job, your business secretary, but you're also the first secretary, deputising for Jeremy Corbyn at times. You were given that job after they saw the reaction to the lack of women in top jobs in the cabinet. So you were given it 2 hours after you were given the business job. The specific quote was, "We're taking a fair amount of expletive out there about women. We need to do a Mandelson. Let's make Angela Shadow First Minister of State. Like Mandelson was, she can cover PMQs. Do the Angela bit now." Do you believe that story?
Mandelson.
Do you believe that story? I mean, it's been overheard that this was what was going on when they were cobbling the thing together.
I have no idea. I was in Brighton, and I certainly wasn't within hearing distance of the reshuffle which was going on in London. But can I say I'm proud to be the first woman to hold this post, albeit in shadow form, since one of my idols, Barbara Castle, in 1968. I was 7 when Barbara did that job in government. And people might say it's a token, but you know, when I have to stand up in Parliament and have a good go at George Osborne when he's standing in for the Prime Minister at Prime Minister's Questions, I think that'll be a good thing, and I'm relishing the chance.
Were you given any assurances about what policy would be, about what your line would have to be on different issues when you took these 2 jobs?
Well, I had a brief discussion with Jeremy, which I'm not going to bandy around on the open airwaves. These things are never done publicly. But, you know, I spent the summer going round the country in a failed attempt to get to be elected deputy leader of the party. I've met and talked to tens of thousands of people up and down the country. They want change. Jeremy Corbyn got a huge mandate at the weekend, and I think those of us who love the party and want it to do well, want to get rid of this terrible Tory government, have a duty to listen to what the members have told us, to interpret it with respect and get on with the job, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Angela Regal, thanks so much.